I got a treat here. Live with me is Gordon Favorito of Voter GA?
Yeah, voters organized for trusted election results in Georgia.
We're
still shooting for that, John.
You've been a stalwart since the first day I got here. You've been right there with us, Gordon Favorito. You got a big hearing today at 11 a.m., right?
Well, no, we actually had the hearing yesterday.
Yesterday.
Yeah, which all sorts of interesting information to talk about.
All right, so we're going to get to all that. John Fredericks Radio Network, plus taking your calls. Let's go to the phone lines here very quickly. Let's get to Michael in Minneapolis, the land of 1,000 taxes. Michael, line 1, you're live.
The land of 10,000 taxes.
Oh, I'm sorry. That's right. The land of 10,000 taxes.
and in good morning on a balmy 24-degree day in Minneapolis.
Hey, how about them Vikings?
Yeah.
They're playing golf, I think.
Yeah. Anyway,
maybe they went to Amelia Island with the Republican National Committee.
Well, speaking of your pina colada comment, I wanted to tease you a little bit. Tuesday night I was listening to your election coverage, and as you were having to sign off because I think you were one of your co-hosts that spilled a brandy Manhattan on the computer board.
Yep, exactly.
I figured I'd call back.
Yes, that is exactly what happened. And coupled with the fact that I knew we were going to lose by 10:15. So that coupled with spilling the brandy on the computer board, I said, you know what? There's something. God has a plan, and the plan is for me to get off the air.
But on a serious note, John, I heard, again, not to be Debbie Downer this morning, I heard I was on for 2 hours. So I was listening to the lady talk about the, how the ground game has really materialized. And the conservative movement cranked out 750,000, people that showed up there yesterday within 5 days, and that's great. My only concern is this: the Democratic Party had the ultimate playbook. They came in with, as you heard, the truckloads of ballots that came from Long Island to Pennsylvania. They had, of course, the computer systems, the voting machines, all of that. How do we squash all of these little obstacles so that we can get our candidates to get from point A to point C?
Let's turn this over to Garland Favorito. Garland had a hearing yesterday at 4 o'clock just on this topic, trying to get the truth out about the massive election fraud in Georgia. Garland, you got Michael here from Minneapolis. What happened yesterday?
Yeah, Mike. So I think that's a great question, and we can just I've got the tip of the spear on that.
Great segue
of how to go in. Yeah, thanks for that. So let's walk through what happened yesterday and what's still going to happen. So we are not dead yet by any means. In fact, we're alive and well. So yesterday we had a hearing to what we call a motion to compel Fulton County to produce the ballots so that we can inspect them both visually and forensically and determine how many, if any, are fraudulent. The reason that we were able to get this hearing and we got the attention of the judge was because we had 4 sworn affidavits that from 20-year poll managers who said that they handled fraudulent ballots during the hand count audit that we had about 6 weeks ago. So in addition to that, we had the State Farm Arena video, as the world has now seen, of the workers illegally scanning ballots after they had told the monitors that they were not going to scan anymore, and then those they continued to scan them, and they put the same badges through the scanner multiple times. So we had a hearing yesterday. The judge was pretty impressed with our brief. We have a really good brief. And he granted a motion to preserve the evidence, and he granted us an evidentiary hearing for next week. Now, the problem is that in order to make this lawsuit, we couldn't do it as an election challenge because it was too late. You only have 5 days to challenge the election.
Right.
So we We did it as a constitutional claim that basically our constitutional rights of due process and equal protection were violated because of these illegal ballots that were scanned. So the judge really seemed to be appreciative of the argument, and he granted this motion, and we got a hearing coming next week. Now, the reason we couldn't get this hearing, we wanted to have our inspection start actually Friday. I don't even know what day it is. This Thursday. So we asked for it to start Friday, and the judge, his argument, which was a good one, he said, well, if this is not an election contest, why is it an emergency? Because we had filed it as an emergency motion because of the what's going on. Literally, while we were having the hearing, Fulton County had to delay because they were evacuated because of the threat of violence. So the attorneys for Fulton had actually gone to their home and were taking the call via Zoom. So, and of course, we had the unrest at the Capitol, and here we are having this hearing on the same day. I would have thought that would have justified an emergency. However, he was correct in giving them some time to respond. So he could have given them 30 days to respond. He chose to give them only 1 week, which I think was a good thing. And the reason that he had that hearing was because they violated my open records request for the ballots, which I made prior to the recount certification. And once it's certified, say it's sealed. So
Garland, who giving them a week to respond, who has to respond?
The county has to respond. They still have not.
Fulton County.
Fulton County has to explain why they are objecting to us looking at the ballots.
Unbelievable. They
still have not filed a document that says why they were objecting. They raised some bogus issues yesterday. One of the most bogus is that it would violate the secret ballot in Georgia, and we quickly explained to the judge that no, there's no tracing of the voter to the ballots. The ballots are just ballots like every other state, and that's a bogus argument, not only in Georgia, but it's a bogus argument everywhere in the country, in every state.
What is your level of confidence that in a week after they file their response, what is your level of confidence, Garland Favorito, that you're going to be able to do an inspection of these Fulton County ballots?
I'm very confident. I would say over 90% confident that we'll get that, to have that inspection.
And when you get the inspection based on the affidavits and what you've learned, what would be a reasonable expectation on your part will happen? What will you find out?
In 24 hours, we will know, probably even less than that, we will know roughly how many fraudulent ballots they are from a visual inspection, and we will also turn that hard drive over for forensics inspection, maybe a couple of forensics inspections, and that takes also less than 24 hours. So I would think within a day, if we get the inspection Friday or Saturday, we will know by the weekend. Before the weekend is over, we'll know roughly how many fraudulent ballots there were, and that could impact both the presidential electors as well as the U.S. Senate race between Purdue and Ossoff.
Really?
Absolutely.
I have one more question, if I can throw it at you.
Yeah, Michael.
Absolutely. And if I could just comment a little bit more on your question before we leave that question, because that was such a good question, Mike. So the ground game for election integrity in America should be what I believe what we're doing. We could have done this a month earlier. We were kind of relying on the other high-profile lawyers that were involved, and they took a different tact. They were trying to attack the election and the voters, the qualification of the voters, rather than attacking the ballots. So, Mike, you made a great point there when you talked about the 100,000 votes, 100,000 ballots being shipped in from Long Island to Pennsylvania. I don't know what's happening in Pennsylvania, but I don't know why the people of Pennsylvania are not challenging the legality on those ballots, because you can detect that they're fraudulent. We will be able to detect fraudulent ballots here in Georgia if they exist, and they can detect fraudulent ballots in Pennsylvania. I don't know why or if anybody is doing anything in Pennsylvania right now. But what my suggestion would be is that they do the same thing that we're doing in Georgia and immediately file a suit, if they have not already filed a suit, to inspect those ballots. And
Right.
that way you can get those easily kicked out. That is the most straightforward way to overturn an election, and or at least get the evidence on the record. The approaches that a lot of the legal teams have been taking are, I think, at least partially flawed, because they cannot achieve the results that people expect them to achieve, which is an honest election. All they can do is say, well, we'll fix it next time. Well, we don't want to fix it next time. We want to fix it this time, and we're committed to fixing it this time, and we're continuing on, and we'll be fighting this all the way through Inauguration Day.
Yeah, and I, to go along with that, and again, not just down there in Georgia, but I mean, it's not on the record up here, but we know Mike Lindell had made the comment in the caravan march that Trump had won by 60,000 votes up here. Can we prove it? Well, that might be tough to prove. I don't know where he's getting his information, but I'm looking at all the little things, like what happened in Georgia with the governor, and of course the other man, Roethlisberger. I forget his title.
Roethlisberger.
I think now, Mike, that this is what Garland's saying. Now we're very focused, okay? And here's what we're focused on. One thing: where they're fraudulent ballots and where they rescan in the machine. That's it. It's very narrow now, right? There's no Dominion machines and servers in Germany and gun battles and stuff, okay? Because I deal in reality and facts. Everybody knows that. I don't do conspiracy theories. I don't do any of that.
Sure.
Okay, here's the facts. If they scan these ballots and they find that there were a number of fraudulent ballots define that. That means ballots that were not cast in a legal manner, that were manufactured and made up. You just printed them up off a machine, and you did the bubble screen, and you fed them through. They're not. They just made them up. That's a fraudulent ballot. If this inspection can determine that there's a number of those, I don't know if it's 100 or 50,000. All hell breaks loose, right? David
right.
Perdue
Right.
is going to immediately sue. He's going to immediately sue that there should never been a runoff, right?
That's right.
Because if his name's on there, those have to get thrown out. You're going to have a legal battle royale. And so we're going to wait until that happens.
Mm-hmm.
First thing is, why is Fulton County fighting it? They're fighting it. If you have nothing to hide, you'd say, hey, come in and look at it. Trump conceded. It's all over. Here's all my ballots. Let's just put this behind us and move on. They asked for a week, and they're going to try to get that judge not to let you to inspect the ballots.
That's right. And we have a good judge, and we think that he'll rule in our favor. And we have ways to detect the fraudulent ballots. We know how to detect them visually, and we will be able to detect them forensically as well. Probably even more. Once we run the forensic audit, we'll be able to detect most of them visually, but we'll get some additional ones probably from our forensics.
This is the if you can think of, Mike, a smoking gun and just visualize a smoke. This is the biggest smoking gun. This isn't like there was a mistake on a machine and there was an error message, or this signature didn't match, but it kind of matched, or maybe they moved, but they didn't move, and maybe that ballot, maybe there was a drop chain of custody that didn't get there. No, here's 30,000 ballots that somebody printed off on a copy machine, had a computer bubble in the Democratic choices, and ran them through the machine in the darkness of night. If that's what happened, it's the repercussions of this are going to be national. And you can thank Garland, Favorito for that, and his doggedness in narrowing this down to something that everybody can understand.
Mm-hmm.
You printed up a fraudulent ballot, you ran it through the machine. Nobody. It was owned by nobody. It was nobody's vote. You just made up the vote. That's what you're after, right?
Exactly. And John, I kind of jumped ship, because I was more onto the Dominion thing, but I realized that, wow, this is amazing. This is more concrete evidence
Bingo.
than doing the Dominion thing, which I do think is real. There is really some serious issues with that equipment. And this was so obvious and so easily provable that I realized that we had to devote all of our attention to this if we were really concerned about election integrity. This is not an esoteric issue at all. This is hard, concrete evidence, just like you're saying, John, and we'll take it all the way.
And easy to understand, and just play this out. So it's it's Friday, Saturday, Sunday. It's a week. General Assembly in Georgia opens. You have the evidence. The evidence is indisputable. See, that's the thing. That's why I love this angle. It's indisputable. Garland. Gabriel Sterling can't get on TV and spin it, right? Although they'll attempt to spin it.
Mm-hmm.
Ravensburger can't spin it.
Right.
Okay, somebody printed up fraudulent ballots, fed them through the machine, affected the outcome of multiple races.
Exactly.
Public Service Commissioner, President, Senate, all hell breaks loose.
Exactly, John. So if you want to play it out, by that Monday, we could have literally dozens of sworn affidavits from those who inspected it, as well as a couple of forensic reports ready to lay on the desk of every legislator and the governor on the following Monday.
You're going to be a national public figure, so you better get some ties because you're going to be going on national TV if this happens.
I got a closet full of them.
In studio, Garland, Favorito. Garland, thanks for being with us. Always appreciate it. And
Appreciate you too, John.
What a day yesterday, Garland. And we got a lot of callers. And Garland, you have been a warrior on the front lines of this since the day I got here. You knew something was wrong. You have followed up, and you've been a beast. And thank you for your relentless can-do, no-talk, action attitude.
Been doing it for 18 years, John. Thanks.
And we go back a long time. And it's amazing how life brings you back together.
Yeah, it's good to be back.
It's a circle of life, right?
Like a reunion.
It is. We only go back a long time. And I want to thank Carolyn Summers, who re-engaged Garland with us on day 3. Garland said to me, he said, you know me a long time. I don't blow smoke. There's something here's wrong. And that was on day 3. You said something's wrong, and now you're about to find out. You did at least little research yesterday on the young lady that was shot dead, Ashley Babbitt. Can you tell us a little bit about her? Then we'll get to the callers.
Right. So it was brief research because I was so busy yesterday on the hearing. But we did see the video. There is a video out there of them apparently they had broken a Capitol window, and they were trying to lift her up into the window, and she went. Just as she went through that threshold, one of the Capitol Police shot her, and she fell back outside of the Capitol on the walk there, and that's apparently where she died. So obviously, we condemn any type of violence of that kind. That's not the right thing to do. But at the same time, I think that we should make Ashley the poster child of election fraud prevention. So that she
gave her life.
Gave her life for that, and she shouldn't die in vain. Mm-hmm. So I'm hoping that we will use this for kind of carry on this effort in her name.
So she was unarmed. Of course, she was defenseless, and she was a 14-year veteran of the Marine Corps, right?
Yeah, she was in the military. I think it was. I thought it was the Marines, but I have to double check. But yes, she was a 14-year military veteran.
She was a 14-year military veteran, and she was coming through the window.
Right.
And this was not Antifa, so let's just
Correct.
stop that. Let's,
Correct.
as we say, facts are stubborn things. So there's a narrative, and then there's facts. So
right.
Ashley Babbitt was not a member of Antifa that infiltrated the rally, but the window was smashed, and she was attempting to crawl through it.
Right, with some help.
And the cops shot her dead.
Mm-hmm. Right, from the inside.
Right.
Yes.
Now, we don't know if they warned her or anything of that nature.
Right.
but they shot her dead from the inside. So she actually got in the window.
I think she was just passing through the window when she was shot,
Yeah.
According to the video. So
Yeah,
and
it's
then
not
fell
good.
backwards. Yeah, I think they actually had to lift her up a little bit.
Yeah, but you're right. I love what you're doing here, Garland, because she should die in vain. Because this whole thing was this whole reason. The left that wants to condemn us and call it insurrection and things like that. This all was a result of election fraud, and nobody did anything about it, and that level of frustration. But somebody's dead,
right?
And we lost a life over that, and she is the face now of the not accepting fraud in our electoral system.
Exactly, John, and this is just such a massive problem. I mean, here in Georgia, it's been terrible, but you look nationwide at all the battleground states, and it's just horrendous how we cannot get accountable, trustworthy, and transparent elections. It's unbelievable that this is America. We're supposed to be the beacon of hope for around the world, and we probably have as a corrupt of an election system here than anywhere in the world. I mean, where else? I mean, in the world could you have machines counting votes that you can't do forensic exams on to make sure they're counting correctly? People are stuffing the ballots into elections officials and getting away with it. And then we burn the evidence. We can't get the court won't listen to it. It just goes on and on. The complete lack of transparency. We ask for ballots. They try to hide them from us. So this whole constitutional right to vote is a facade. We don't have it. We might as well just live in a Marxist or fascist country. It's just absolutely absurd. That's what's going on in Georgia and what's going on in other states, and it's a huge thing to try to change, because nobody wants the change, and most of the problems are coming from the elections officials themselves. We've seen it over and over. It's the elections officials that are creating the fraud. This is not voter fraud. This is election fraud committed by election officials who are covered up by other.
Think about this. If there were 25 or 30,000 manufactured ballots, right? And somebody took those knowing they were manufactured ballots, and somebody ran those through a machine knowing they were manufactured ballots. I mean, it's incomprehensible to think of the consequences of that. Election, Purdue, Trump, the whole thing. Did it happen in Pennsylvania? Handcuffs, right? Somebody's going to get arrested.
I'm glad you brought that up, John, because another issue here is how do you get this evidence? Because what we're seeing now, how do you get it for adjudication? What we're seeing is the cover-up. The cover-up has started. The Secretary of State, we've seen the Secretary of State covering up for Fulton County repeatedly, and multiple officials in his office. Then you've got the FBI that's been called into question for dozens of things, lately in the last few years or so.
Yeah.
Then you have the GBI, which cannot be trusted here in Georgia.
GBI did nothing. They just looked the other way. So yeah, I mean, you got a lot of people involved here.
So here's the solution to the problem. We the people need to take the evidence directly to a federal grand jury without being blocked.
Right.
And the biggest problem is the district attorneys keep blocking us from getting this evidence to a grand jury and presenting it. However, we have another group here in Georgia with Judge Paul Nally leading that charge, and they're working on and actually have already petitioned the grand jury, the federal grand jury here in the Northern Judicial District, to open the case for election fraud and allow groups like us, Voter GA, to present this evidence
it's going to happen
directly to a grand jury. Now, a lot of times we get blocked by the district attorney. B.J. Pack just resigned. He's our local U.S. district attorney here. We get blocked by the county attorneys. Every time we try to do this, the county attorneys stepped up and blocked us.
Yeah, on the payroll of the people.
Right, exactly, John.
Let's get some phone calls. We've got 13 minutes. I got a hard out of 10. Okay. Let's get to John in Pennsylvania. Line 1, John, you're live.
Good morning, John.
Morning.
There's few things. What's the president's attorney, John?
Scipione?
No, his other attorney, the constitutional attorney.
Jay Sekulow.
Jay Sekulow?
No.
Okay, go ahead.
No. Anyway, the last 7 minutes of War Room, episode 636 last night, he laid out the case of exactly what has happened and why people are frustrated. And everybody needs to look at that, and you need to study that, and that needs to be the model going forward of what needs to be fixed.
Right.
But basically, I know you're working on efforts to recall or to primary people, and your guest is working on remedies for the election fraud. But the overwhelming problem here is you've got 75 million people who are relying on elected officials and election officials to do the right thing, and every system is breaking. And that's what was emphasized in this segment from 636 last night on War Room that you need to study.
Okay.
But there's three things that are clear.
All
The
right.
election was stolen. Somebody got to Mike Pence. I don't know if it's the Koch brothers or who. And the third thing is the Communist Chinese Party needs our markets. They need our markets to sell into, and they need our liquidity markets. So we need to create, and I'd like to talk to you sometime and help you work and organize this, but we need to create an infrastructure, just like AMEC is the alternative to AARP. We need places for people to put their 401ks that don't put money into the CCP. And we need to organize so that people can leverage their expenditures and hit these people where it hurts. You got to hit them where it hurts, and you got to take your spending and the spending of 75 million people, and you need to direct it to patriotic companies and patriotic organizations. And this needs to be done for finances. It needs to be done for consumers. It needs to be done for automotive. It needs to be done for everything.
Well, we have the people, John, and we have the movement. So, put that together, and let's get a list out because, why should we be spending money helping the CCP? John, I got to move on. I got limited time. John, thank you. Let's get to line 1, Tim in Lynchburg. Tim, you're live.
Hi, thanks for my call.
Yes, Tim.
I want to address the Democrat you had on, Joe
Morrissey. Yes, sir.
Yes, I think what he said, this is one of the reasons why there's so much animosity between the Trump supporters, because the first thing they want to do is get up there and blame Trump for all this, and that is just horrible to hear day in and day out. I think, look, the Congress is ultimately responsible for what happened yesterday, because and the whole, their failure to govern the people, and to take care of us. If they was governing right and doing everything they were supposed to, and making sure these elections were run right like they should be, I don't think we would have had that issue. And I think about the young woman that died that, Joe Biden said Jacob Blake was a hero. I would say, look, she fulfilled the role of a patriot. She went up there, look, she was protesting this thing that she believed in for our country, and she gave her life for it. It's unfortunate, but I watched them continue that thing. Each one of the Mitch McConnell and Lindsey Graham, all of them. I am disgusted with the Republican Party. They let this. It's like it spoiled the movement, and the movement is trying to get the election, all of this corruption, fixed in this election, and they failed us. And I don't know other way to say it, but they sit there and they talk about, oh, the sanctity of this place, and I mean,
now, look,
come on now.
I get the sanctity of this place. You mean of the epicenter of the swamp? The sanctity of that? I mean, looking at the pictures of those representatives with hazmat suits on, crawling around, I'll never get that out of my mind again. You know, and I mean, you hate to laugh at it, but I mean, so there's a couple people in there, and they're putting on hazmat suits and they're crawling under their chairs. I mean, come on. Yes. I'll never get that image out of my mind. Tim, thank you.
At least they understand now that they represent the people. I think they lost track of that thought.
Yeah, I think they kind of got it now, right? They represent the people. Again, can't condone violence of any kind or occupying other people's property or federal buildings or whatever. You just can't have that.
Right.
But Ashley Babbitt should be. I mean, she died trying to get a fair election. Line one. Let's get to Amy in Fairfax. Amy, you're live.
Yeah, I had a question. In 21 states on the absentee ballots, there was a nice little box that you could check off to get your absentee ballots in all future elections. In Georgia, was that box on the absentee ballot?
Yes.
How do you undo?
Well, they just undo it. They all voting laws go through the General Assembly in every single state. So all Georgia has to do is say, okay, we're nullifying that. Because that box...
Stacey Abrams is going to start yelling racism.
Let her do it. You know what? Let her do it. I mean, we cannot be intimidated by Stacey Abrams. Stacey Abrams got here because Brad Raffensperger didn't want to be called a racist. So he wanted to have a nice article written about him in the New York Times. So this is what led us here. So, yes, she's going to scream.
Will the Georgia Assembly have the guts to stand up?
Well, if they don't, they'll not win another nomination. Amy, that's my point, right? They either have the will to stand up and get voter reform and do what Joe said. It's election day, not election season. It's there's no mail-in ballots at Starbucks. There's no drop boxes with no chain of custody. You go in and you prove who you are and you vote. Period. And
the other point
go ahead.
I wanted to bring up is Democrats love nothing more than taxes, and it's time that we start legally finding ways to starve them of tax revenue, particularly swapping and trading for items that you can versus purchasing them, because everything that you swap or trade, there's no taxes on because it's a person-to-person transaction.
Oh, Amy, that's like Amy wants to go to the underground economy where you meet in the dark and you say, okay, I've got these 3 chickens and I need 4 quarts of milk plus all your Diet Coke.
It's gone long beyond that, John. I was in... there was one in Southwest Virginia last week where people were trading things like old trucks for 6 months of rent. It's long beyond, way beyond chickens for lettuce. And this movement has been growing over the last 5 years.
Wow.
Part of it, by the off-grid types, but now people are seeing it as a legitimate way to starve governments a legal way of starving governments of tax revenue. And after a while, it really adds up. And that's the message Democrats will get.
Oh, that'll drive them bananas. Amy, thank you. Thank you, Amy. Let's get to line 2. Let's get to Steve in Florida. Steve, you're live.
Hey, how you doing, Glad
Good, Steve. Turn your radio off or your app off.
Yeah, let me get it off. Is that good now?
Yes.
Perfect.
All right, so I'm with the Broward Republican Executive Committee. I made 25,000 phone calls for Trump. I've been listening to your radio station in Bannon. Also, I've got your email. I sent out 10,000. My database is 10,000. I've sent out 10,000 emails for you and for Bannon.
Thank you.
One of the things I'd like, I'm going to send some donations in. I'd like you to
Steve.
talk on the show about where to send them, who to make the checks out to. I will get you plenty of people. The other thing is, I would like you to do one thing when you get on Bannon's show or call Bannon and ask him to take CNN off the back of his. I mean,
you know how
I
many
got people
times I've
calling
told
me.
him that? I have told him that. Why do you have CNN in the background of your show driving everybody bat crap crazy? Oh, well, you got to have CNN. I got to see what the opposition's saying. Well, you know what? Put it on a little iPhone or something. I don't want to see CNN. But I'm going to tell him again. Today,
Well, listen,
as soon as
I've been in business. Good.
At
I've been
12
in business,
o'clock, I'm going to tell him.
Good man. I've been in business 67 years. I own the largest patriotic apparel website in the world called theflagshirt.com. I speak to Republicans all over the country. We need to get more people watching and listening to your show, more people on Bannon. We need to get more communication with you. I'm a big communicator. I work with the many of the people in Florida, all over the state. You notice that we won Trump by 200,000 votes. We got the first. I'm in almost an all Democratic area here in Broward, as you know. Mm-hmm. For the first time in Weston, 30 years, we got a Republican mayor. How did we do it? We went out and we worked, knocked on doors. We got people who have never been in the Republican Party start to work. We got 1,000 people in the Western Republican Club. We need to get the people positive. I'm glad that we're finally doing something in Georgia. We sent a lot of people up there to, work knocking on the doors. And we're here to continue our work, and we want to switch this election because people can't sleep. They're so upset about, the fraud and everything like that. We got to do something. But I'm glad that you're positive, and I'm positive also.
The other big thing y'all did down there was you got rid of your elections director. This was the lady, if I recall, it's Brenda Snipes, and she actually had a ballot manufacturing organization in her office that were doing fraudulent ballots.
And you guys fired her.
And David, there was an affidavit from a worker who caught him doing that. Same kind of thing that happened in Fulton County.